Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest Fusion 5 webinar, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service. My name is Gareth Boyle, the Marketing Manager for Microsoft here at Fusion 5, and I'm joined today by Senior Consultant Philip Matthew, Principal Consultant Nathan Woodward, and Global Sales Director for MapTasker Peter Schmidt. Before we kick things off, just a few quick bits of housekeeping. During the presentation, if you have any questions or you'd like us to expand on anything, there is a Q&A option up the top right-hand corner of your browser or Teams application, and we can address it during the final 10 minutes of today's session. In addition, we'll also share a recording and the slide decks from the presentation after the event is concluded. With that out of the way, let's kick things off with our first speaker, Nathan Woodward. Nathan.
Thank you, Gareth, and it's great to have all of you with us here today. We'll be taking you through Microsoft Dynamics Field Service with a bit of an intro from myself. We'll move into a wonderfully detailed demo with Phil, and then to one of our trusted partners, MapTasker, for how we can augment and extend the capabilities of Field Service into the geospatial space with their wonderful product that we love and use here at Fusion 5. So today, as you said, the topic is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service, and I think it's important to start to help you understand where does that sit within the realm of Microsoft's business applications, and it's right there in the middle. So you might have heard of Dynamics 365 before as a CRM, and for sales and as a sales CRM, it's a fantastic application, but it's one of the multiple applications that are built on Microsoft's Power Platform that include their customer service offering for case management and customer service delivery, marketing activities through customer insights, journeys, and data, a close cousin and relationship there to supply chain and finance. And of course, we've got field service there for getting people into the field to undertake service activities, as well as other scheduling type of activities that Phil will take you through in his demo. Now, important to understand with the rest of Microsoft's business applications that there's strong integration into Microsoft 365 applications for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and Teams, because we understand that users will often spend a lot of the time in Outlook processing emails or Teams in various collaboration activities. So we've got first-party integration into that world, and also into Microsoft's Power Platform for extensions through Power BI, Power Pages for things like self-scheduling of field service jobs and service calls, Power Virtual Agents, and Power Automate for automation as well, all backed by Azure, hosted in Australia, secure and scalable. And this is really part of Microsoft's vision to help deliver great experiences for our customers, where we understand them, we can personalize interactions because we have that customer 360 view and we understand what their service history is. There may be other opportunities that are open that the service team doesn't actually have any involvement in, but visibility of that is key. And we can also leverage the broader data landscape and AI around that, all built on Microsoft's customer data platform. And we can see that we've got Copilot in the center there, which is has great investment from Microsoft at the moment, and Field Service is one of those key offerings around that sort of unified customer service offering for our customers. So when we start to talk about connected experiences through every role for those seamless customer journeys, obviously, it'll often start, with marketing campaigns. We might, result in sales that we've sold something to them. We need to provide service, and we mentioned customer service before, which is a great way to front the interactions and scheduling into field service. But then on the back end of that, we've also got options for self-service, and then ultimately resulting in field service. So once again, getting a person out to get hands-on to a product, to deliver an installation, whatever that might look like, field service we can leverage to do that. And it's really, once again, part of that customer 360. So Microsoft has done some research for us, which is super handy. This is from Forrester, Gartner, and a customer experiences study that has been done. And that really shows the sort of disconnect that a lot of service-oriented organizations have in that their customers, 66% of customers expect the companies that they're dealing with to understand their unique needs and the expectations that come with that. But only 8% of those agree that businesses are actually providing on those expectations, right? Whereas 80% of companies actually perceive that they are providing excellent service. So there is a gap there, and what we're showing you today can certainly help you fill those gaps. Now, the $7 billion will be for a US market figure, but basically there's a $7 billion incremental revenue opportunity for organizations that can resolve customer issues on the first contact. So that might be either first contact via the customer service center to do a self-resolution for a customer, or help them solve that problem without requiring further assistance, or when we are sending a person to a place, there is a real tangible cost to that, and being able to do that on the first visit has real impacts. So really, we want to be able to solve limited real-time visibility with field service, because that drives high operational costs. Inaccurate inventory for daily jobs means that we have a low first-time fix rate, and inability to optimize resource scheduling, so sending people to the wrong order of jobs that doesn't make any sense, can also reduce productivity as well. And we've got a solution to all of those problems in Microsoft Dynamics Field Service. So what I want to touch on here is the core messaging, right? And that's to send the best person, so the person with the right skills, right, and best place to do it for the job, with the right equipment and the right skills to that job the first time, right? And that is the sort of promise or the end state of what we can deliver on field service. And to that point, I'm going to show, before I transition to Phil for a real deep dive into the nuts and bolts of how we can leverage this to achieve the vision that I've just laid out for you, is a quick 3.5-minute video from Microsoft that really shows how field service can work in an end-to-end connected offering, all the way from that first customer service contact through to scheduling that, as well as the mobile app for the field service users themselves, to sort of tie that together. And then we're going to invite Phil to give us a really detailed deep dive in what that looks like. So please enjoy this video for the next couple of minutes. And I just realized I need to share my screen audio, so let me do that right now.
Contoso, an HVAC manufacturer, remotely monitors their systems deployed by Fabricam via IoT alerts and using AI. Molly, Contoso's field service manager, starts her day in Microsoft Teams. She asks Microsoft 365 Chat about unscheduled work orders. Microsoft 365 Chat responds with a list of work orders created in Dynamics 365 Field Service from customer cases, calls, emails, and IoT alerts. Molly reviews the list and opens Fabricam's work order in Teams. She sees scheduling suggestions from Copilot and assigns a technician. Contoso's dispatcher, Veronica, starts her day in Dynamics 365 Field Service. She can see unscheduled work orders or navigate to the schedule board, where she sees work orders scheduled by Contoso's managers and work orders that were created automatically by resource scheduling optimization. Veronica can also modify the schedule board manually. David, a Contoso field service technician, starts his day in the field service mobile app, where he sees that he's been assigned to the Fabricam work order. David uses Copilot to summarize the work order. He reviews the summary, directions to the site, required products in inventory, and the asset history. When he arrives at Fabricam, David follows the step-by-step tasks. During inspection, the system fails a pressure check. David quickly opens a guide, reviews relevant knowledge articles, and realizes he needs expert help. David launches a remote assist session to contact a remote expert who inspects the HVAC system via a video call and instructs David to replace a pressure sensor. Problem solved. David updates the work order by speaking to Copilot in the Field Service mobile app, which provides recommended work order updates. At Fabricam, the facilities manager checks on other systems and emails Contoso's field service manager, Molly, about an anomaly with another unit. Using Copilot in the new field service add-in for Microsoft Outlook, Molly quickly creates a work order pre-populated with the relevant details from the email and schedules a technician based on their availability, location, and skill set. Work order data automatically syncs with Dynamics 365, so Molly can stay in the flow of her work and save valuable time. As the work order progresses, Molly stays up to date with intelligent recaps generated by Copilot in the Dynamics 365 Field Service. Throughout the day, David, the field technician, can stay on top of his work orders and communication using the Field Service mobile app or via the familiar Microsoft Viva Connections home experience in Microsoft Teams. He reviews work order details, makes status updates, and launches Remote Assist if he needs expert help. Using Teams is convenient and saves David valuable time. Back at the office, Molly and other managers get a dashboard view of work order history and technicians' average scheduling, travel, and completion times. They can also see work order trends by incident type, service territory, and system status, helping them make informed decisions to run a fast and lean business. Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service enables Contoso to personalize the service experience, make work more effortless for technicians, and optimize service operations.
So we can see the value or the impact of having a customer 360 view and the integrated data platforms across all of your operations and how that surfaces there through Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service. My first observation from watching that video is I don't think that David's hands have ever touched a HVAC unit, but certainly like the message that he's putting out there for us today. So look, at this point, we are going to transition over to our good friend, Philip Matthew, to take us through a deep dive into a real world field service demo. And so Phil, over to you. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Nate. All right, so we'll dive into it. So look, hi everyone. So what we've seen there is obviously quite a bit to take in. Field service is one of those products that really does just have a lot of stuff, and truthfully, understanding the nuts and bolts of all this, I think, is a really important starting point. So field service, obviously one of those many business applications that make up the Dynamics suite, and its primary capabilities tend to be centered around delivering services where businesses can handle not just the scheduling part, but also the frontline field work in as efficient a way as possible. And I think for many people that have done their research and started to read into the kind of field service software, the most prevalent industries tend to be industries like manufacturing and automotives, things of that nature. But I think over the past few years at Fusion 5, we've found the Dynamics field service tends to be a bit more widely applicable than what we have traditionally seen. So to help me position this correctly, I think specifically for those that are new to the world of field service, the angle I like to take when talking about this is not so much from the perspective of the use cases, but understanding, to Nate's point, the nuts and bolts, the underlying technology that drives a product like field service. And so for today, I was going to take us through an initial 101 on universal resource scheduling, which is the Power Platform solution to this allocation of resources to jobs and tasks. And then we'll have a look at some of the items within the app. So I'll just slide. Cool. So like I was saying, to really understand URS, and very simply put, it is the engine that handles the allocation of work to resources. And so it does this through key 4 data points: a record of the job, a record of what is required to do the job, a record of what resources are available, and a record of allocating a resource to the job. So who's actually going to do it? Now, these statements tend to be a little bit more generic than what we'll see in all the Dynamics documentation and probably a lot of the material that we see online. But by making it a little bit more generic, when we begin to imagine what we can do with field service, the variety of industries and scenarios become a whole lot greater. Allocating staff to projects, allocating trucks to go collect waste, students to teachers and rooms, patients to wards. There's a whole variety more than just the traditional industries that something like field service has always been targeted at. So what kind of resources can we actually work with? So field service actually gives us, or URS, I should say, really does give us a wide variety of options. So we have the ability to schedule users. So this is obviously your internal staff that work and are licensed inside field service and work within the application. We have accounts and contacts. So it could be third parties that may contract in and support you in delivering the services that you provide. You can schedule crews. So this is where we predefine a group of resources and we can book them all in one go. We also have the added ability to resource equipment, facilities, so physical spaces or items that that you may use, and allocate them as they can only be used for one job at a time. And then lastly, we've also got pools. So this is where, you know, we may not know who's available down the line, but we don't want to lose that job. So we book it with the appropriate resources, with the right qualities and attributes. And then when we get a little bit closer to the job, we can then fill them with the specific resources that are going to complete that job. So already you can see that by having all of these different types, we can sort of widen the kinds of scenarios that we may be attempting to schedule. So what are the ways in which we schedule? So there are three key ways, and we're going to get a chance to have a look at a couple of them today. The first is the schedule board. So the schedule board is obviously the primary tool that field service uses to allocate resources to jobs. So for those that are in a dispatching role or a scheduling role, this is going to be where you spend a lot of your time allocating all the work out into the field. But then you have the schedule assistant. So this is the next step up where we're more around the semi-automated area where you might be able to handle it manually, but you may want some automated filtering or intelligence to be applied to say, find me the best resource to go and complete this job. And so this comes out of the box with field service, which means that provided all the pre-work is done to define the nature of the work, to define the kind of resource that we need, we can just hit find availability and it will go and find the right resource. And we're going to have a look at that today. And then the last one is RSO, or resource scheduling optimization. So a bit of a caveat here. This is obviously a add-on feature. So it is one license greater than your standard field service, but it gives you a full automated experience when it comes to scheduling work to the resources to the right work. So we can define a set of parameters with rules and filters and conditions, and then we can just let the engine run its course. So every morning or on some frequency, you can have all of your work allocated out. And so when we segue into the context of field service, and now we'll jump into the application, how does it all come together in this app? Well, we go back to those sort of four things. So we have a record of the job, which is a work order. We have a record of what is required to do the job, which is the resource requirements. We have a record of what resources are available. So this is your bookable resource. And then we have a record of connecting that together. So actually allocating the work to someone, and that is the bookable resource booking, or that's a bit of a mouthful. So the shortened name is booking. And so this is the context in which field service exists. So we're going to switch into the app right now, and we'll to start to take a look at a few things. Right. So when working with field service, I think one of the big proponents of a successful adoption is really getting the customer data right. So that is setting up all your customer accounts, or as field service refers to it as a service account or serviceable accounts, in the right way so that they can be consumed by the functions of the field service app. So I'm not going to do this demo without talking just a few minutes about this, because I really feel that this is an important element to successfully getting field service software up and running. So as part of the out-of-the-box field service setup, field service immediately extends the data that's captured on your customer accounts. So when you open up an account, so we'll have a look here at Fusion 5 customer account, we have a whole lot of information that, whilst we probably traditionally are used to, you can immediately see a variety of tabs that aren't really available when we have worked with accounts with any of the other applications. So we've got a few along the top. So when it comes to servicing, we get a view of the service history, a historical view of all of the work orders that have been completed for this customer account. We have some financial information around how we bill the customer when we are delivering services to them. We also get a combination, and there's probably a few places here, so I'll point them out as we go. We get a variety of location data points. So you can see down here, we get a long lat value, which is great for a lot of the geographical functionality, which we'll talk about and also we'll see later on during Peter's demonstration. But then you also get your service addresses, which can be geocoded out of the box, and I'll make the point about this. Service delivery is very much a location-centric function. So these kinds of data points become very, very important because when we have them, we can do a whole lot of great things, and as we'll see examples of. And then we've also got the ability to capture not just locations, but the breakdown of locations. So taking advantage of functional locations, which allows us to divide up a particular account into multiple different layers. So for example, Fusion 5 customer account has coastal office and a head office. And on each of those offices, they exist at level 15, level 43. We can also then even tie the customer assets directly to those different locations. And so the combination of all of that and the way in which field service has by default structured them all together allows us to give a much more specific scheduling and delivery experience. So schedulers know exactly where to send the right field worker. Field workers know exactly where they're going and exactly the asset that they are working with. And so this kind of information, like I was saying, when you get that information right, when you have all of your customers' data correctly configured, this is going to make the actual delivery of the work a whole lot easier. Now, with some of the more recent Wave releases, we've also seen some additions of personally what I think is some great data capture. So along the top, you've also got trade coverages, insurance and warranty. So trade coverages allows us to kind of predefine some of the kinds of trades that this customer may require. So if I know that there are circuit boards and switchboards that we service for this customer, I can define that particular trade. And that means that when I'm going and scheduling the work, it'll ensure that I'm allocating the right kinds of resources and delivering the right kind of work to that particular customer. We also are able to now capture information about insurance that the customer might have, and we can define some basic information around the policy itself. And then that's also true of warranty. So any warranties that they are covered by, whether that's handled through us as a service provider, but also maybe externally held, we can capture all of that information and display it on the customer account. And what's great about it is all this information then becomes readily available when we're actually working off of the work order. So we're going to take a look at that in just a second. Now, one thing to remember, and this is actually a question that definitely comes up quite a bit when we're in our initial evaluations of this product, is with all of this information and these new features that are coming in, do we need to use all of it? Do we have to use all of it? But like all tables and forms and components that we're all familiar with within the Power Platform, field service components remain very configurable. So everything you've seen here, this is what you get by simply deploying field service. But if we're not going to capture things like trades and warranties and insurance, or even maybe we're not asset managing, we can hide all of those things. So it is really important to remember that what we're seeing here is field service as a product, but it remains completely configurable. And I think that is definitely a strength of not just field service, but the Power Platform in general. So we'll look at the scheduling experience. And now the scheduling experience is obviously one of those core components of the field service app. This is where it brings together all of the data that we've been talking about. And most importantly, this is where the scheduler takes all of those open jobs and assigns them to the right task, assigns them to the right resource based on the defined attributes and characteristics that may be required for this work. So to the best available resources with all of these things considered. Now, the first sort of key bit of information here is what information does the scheduler actually get on the work order? So I'm just going to open up a work order, and what's really great is over the last couple of wave releases, Microsoft has released a refreshed view of what these work orders look like. So there's the interface, the experience has become a whole lot cleaner. So what you can see here, we get a lot of the general and useful information that any kind of job would require. So, you know, the state of the job, the priority, which customer we're actually working with, the nature of the job as well. So a maintenance request, and incident types are used. And for those that aren't familiar with this, an incident type allows us to pre-configure or predefine the nature of the job itself. So if I just click into that very quickly. So this allows me to predefine not just the naming convention of the job, but it also allows me to predefine what products we're going to be using to complete the job, what services we're going to build for when this job is completed, what are the actual tasks that need to be completed when the job is done, and then any requirements of the resource that needs to complete this job. And what's great about this is that it means that a scheduler doesn't need to go in and apply this to the work order when they're actually going in and scheduling it. It means that by simply applying this incident type to the work order, the rest of those values will automatically be filled. So what you can see here is if I then now go to the products and services tab, which personally I really love the refreshed view of this. You get all the products that are going to be applied. So we saw that the switchboard is now going to be a product that is applied. And for those that are using field service for inventory management as well, this links directly into that. So if we are allocating products to a job, it'll reflect that in the inventory counts. You also then have the services. So what are the services that are going to be billed for when we are completing this work? We've included tasks and all of those things that we've captured on the incident type immediately applied and ready for the scheduler and the resource to go in and complete. Work orders also have direct access into knowledge articles. So if you do have a knowledge base that is available, or you do want to link articles to the work order, you do have the ability to dig into that. And you've also got a native integration into guides. So I think we saw in the video earlier as well, if you are using guides, you can connect directly into field service. So resources out in the field can work with the scheduler in a much more interactive way, which is great, and have that guided experience as well, which from what I have heard is quite useful, particularly for staff that are new and are getting the hang of how things are working, or perhaps there's an expertise that they're not familiar with, and so they have all the support that they require, and that kind of data goes nicely back and forth between work order and the booking. Now, the other great thing that we have seen, and I know there's probably been a bit of a overwhelming amount of information that we've been hearing about Copilot and the introduction of some of this intelligence into the experience. And so what you may have noticed as we're going through this is Copilot is now going to be natively available to many of the applications that we have and that we can use. And so you get a Copilot for field service, which is sort of specifically targeted towards some of the field service capability, but it just generally becomes quite a helpful tool to have beside you. So, you know, as an example, I can go in and say, let's say, who are my contacts for Fusion 5 customer account. And this is then able to go in and do some of the legwork without you having to go back and forth. It then, once it wakes up, is able to then return, here are all the contacts for this particular customer. So I could then indicate, let's say it was Matthew Phillips as the primary contact for this particular work order. I can then apply that and go ahead and work with it. Now, When it comes to the actual requirements of the work, now prior to this recent wave release, we have always had the resource requirement records readily available to work with, because the assumption was it can be one or more requirements. With the new wave release, we can see here on the right hand side, we assume one resource, but if we need more, we can go and add more resource requirements, which I think is personally great, because the most common scenario that we have seen is very much you've got a job and someone needs to go do it. And so having a nice cleaner interface for allocating a single resource to the work order is great. So on that note, I'm just going to open up the schedule board, and we'll have a look at what that scheduling experience looks like. So the schedule board, again, for those that haven't seen this, is that primary tool that schedulers and dispatchers have available to them. It is generally made up of those lists of all of the resources that are available, and you've got all of the work to be scheduled in a panel beneath it. And the experience is very much a drag and drop experience. So someone can take a work order and they can allocate it out whenever they believe it's appropriate, and then that will go in and automatically create a booking for Hal Griffiths for this particular work order. If field service is configured correctly, a scheduler's experience is very much about the pre-work. They sign in the morning and they've got a whole list of work they need to go schedule. They've got all of their resources available. Now, I won't go into all of the settings and the filtering capabilities of the board, because this is a pretty stock standard experience of a scheduled board. But there are a lot of tools that are available that allow a scheduler to ensure that they are applying or allocating the work to the right resources. Now, this experience obviously is quite personal to schedulers and dispatchers. So if there is one tip that I like to give when we are going through initial evaluations of this product, is to really understand what the workload and the routine is for a scheduler, because getting this schedule board piece right really does allow for that scheduler to log in and allocate work in as efficient a manner as possible. Now, we also talked a bit about the scheduling assistant. So whilst we have this manual interaction where we have unscheduled work that can then be dragged and dropped, and it can be rescheduled and handled all through the board, we also have this scheduling assistant, which is where I can simply click a requirement, and it then gets this little button called Find Availability. And what this does is it applies all the requirements that the job has. So maybe I need a specific skill set, a specific qualification, a specific location, all of these different attributes, and then it goes and finds the right resource. So right now, Copilot Nicole is the resource that is available today, has met all the criteria, is actually available, which is the one thing that we have to make sure of, and does have all of those qualities. And then we can simply go in and create the booking for that resource. Now, just to give you a quick look at what the resources themselves look like, configuring resources is actually a really nice experience. It is a simple record. You define the type of the resource, and then you can also define all the characteristics and categories that may apply to this resource. For many customers, we have also seen them working across time zones and across departments, and so we are able to also include an element of work hours, so we can configure the work hours that they are available, and then we can also ensure that they have all of the right settings set up behind the scenes, so then that way when we have them on the schedule board, a scheduler is not worried about, well, if I what if I accidentally allocate to the wrong resource? No, every resource that will be there will be available and will be available for the job to be booked against them. All right. Now, with that said, unfortunately, because of the demo gods not being on my side this morning, I did want to have a quick run through of the mobile experience. But thankfully, Peter, who's going to be following me, will will give you a bit of insight into what capabilities are available through the mobile experience. But I did want to talk very briefly about what's great about this. So not only do we have a nice refreshed interface, resources who are on the receiving ends of jobs generally are not at their laptop or computers. They tend to be out in the field. So delivering, a really nice mobile experience is obviously a big priority. And thankfully, Field Service Mobile does provide this, and it is readily available with your standard field service licensing. So at a very sort of 101 level, the mobile experience does give you that single place for a resource to log in, see all the work they've got to do. It has a native integration with any of the mapping tools that any devices have, so Apple Maps or Google Maps, whatever. You can click directly into that, and it will use that application. It does have a near real-time sync with Dynamics. So as the field worker is updating data in the app, it will feed back directly onto the schedule board, and then it does have a variety of offline capabilities. Again, really configurable as well. So obviously, if you are going to be evaluating field service, definitely something to keep in mind. Now, just before I hand over, I do want to give a shout out to these peripheral functions that field service provide, but never really get the love that it probably deserves. Outside of the core capabilities, which is your customer data, your scheduling, and your field experience, there are some really great capabilities that field service deliver out of the box. So just to name the four that I personally believe are the big ones. Agreements. So automatically generating work on a predefined schedule, and also with predefined billing and within some sort of date range. This is most commonly applicable to your scheduled maintenance. So if you do have recurring jobs or a cadence of services that need to be delivered, agreements can be configured per customer and can then automatically handle the generation of work orders to then just be ready for the scheduler to book, as we saw on the board. Inventory management as well. There is a great sort of entry-level inventory management tool, which allows us to not just manage warehouses and the stock that we have, but it also, like I was saying before, connects nicely into the use of products across work orders and works interchangeably. And so the data flows back and forth to make sure that we're not using products that we don't have, or to make sure that we do have products for the future when we run short. There's also a billing element to this. So when work orders are completed, we then also get the ability to generate invoices using the services that we've billed for. And in the most recent release waves, we've seen a much tighter integration with F&O and also Business Central from the financial standpoint, but also ERP systems to include that inventory management bit as well. So it is really a nice sort of gateway to connect all of these things into some of those other Microsoft products. And then service level agreements. We commonly hear SLAs talked about when it comes to customer service, but just like that is a service delivery application, as is field service. And so when it comes to the commitments that we make to our customers around the timing of our delivery, we can apply SLAs to work orders and ensure that our work is delivered on time and according to what we've committed. So obviously, like I was saying at the very beginning, there is a lot in field service, but this is one of those tools that once you understand the baseline, which I'm hoping today we have gotten into, it really does allow us to apply this product to a large number of scenarios. So definitely a great product to have worked with. So naturally, as I mentioned, service delivery depends heavily on locations. And this happens to be one of the many ways that field service can be extended for both the experience of the scheduler and also the field worker. So I'm going to pass over to Peter from the MapTasker team to talk a bit about what they do in this area. So Peter, over to you.
Thanks very much, Phil. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for your time today. As Phil mentioned, when you're working with mobile staff, knowing where people and things are becomes critically important. And MapTasker is an add-on to field service that addresses a number of common challenges that we see with customers. So, for example, how do you tag the location of things that don't have an address? It might be that they're in a public park or on a work site, on an airport, whatever. So to start with, if you see on the left-hand side here, Map Tasker is just integrated with Field Service. It appears as a menu option here. And the Map Tasker dashboard allows me to view any geotagged records on a map. So it may be things that have an address. We automatically geocode these, but it can also be things that don't have an address. They just have a lat long on them. So what I'm going to do here is just tag some assets on the map here that I want to see. So I've actually created some little icons that allow me to see different types of assets according to their icon. And I can also show other data as well. So I might want to see, for example, what work orders I've got at that location as well. Now, having selected my data here on the left, I then need to choose a geographic area that I want to search. Now, I can just put in a place, an address. It might be, a car's hit a power pole and I want to notify customers in the area. So I may pick a location and specify a distance, or I can just pick a country. In this case, I'll select Australia, and I'm going to use Queensland today for this. I will show you the territory and the freehand search as well later on in the demo today. So having selected my data and having selected the area, I've done a search and it's come up with a cluster of assets and things at this location. So if I just zoom in a little bit more, you can see I've got a specific place here where I've can see some street lights, I can see some traffic lights, I can see some work orders, and I can click on these and view some details about them, and I will show you a bit more of what we can do there later on. In my scenario here, I actually want to add a new asset on there. So I can create records directly just by dropping a pin on the map here. So what I'm going to do is create a record. Now, as I say, I can create any record. It doesn't have to be a standard table. It can be a custom one. A common scenario we get is, for example, somebody needs a permit to work in a particular location before they can do the work order. This allows them to specify that location and the area that may be impacted from that. But what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to create a customer asset. And what this will do is pop up the Dynamics record for me and allow me to enter the details. There we go. So I'm just going to give this a name. So I'm going to call it LP9. In my categories here, I'm going to say it's a street light. The account I'm going to pick, and I'm also going to pick the functional location for me. Okay. So I can just save and close that, and you'll see that it's captured the latitude and longitude for me there. So that's creating a record from directly within Dynamics. But another common scenario we get, particularly with local governments and utilities, etc., is where they want the members of the public to submit records. And so MapTasker has a control that works with Microsoft Power Pages. So what I've done here, I've actually already got some data showing on a map, so the person can see, oh, are there cases already before they actually log a case. What I'm going to do here is enter a location. And this is using the ArcGIS or the Bing map search to come back with addresses. So I'm going to actually select Brisbane River. What I'm going to do as well here, I'm actually going to turn on a satellite map. So it's highlighted the river for me, but I actually want to create a case that relates to that river. So it may be a member of the public's been walking along and they notice some oil on the water here. So what they're able to do is actually go and draw an area on the map and say, I could see a bit of an oil slick in this area here. So it's not just creating pins on a map. I can actually, as you see here, define areas, and I could add annotations and other things. This control itself can be actually embedded within a multi-step form. And so I can capture some other data about the incident. And then when I submit it, what happens is it will go through into Dynamics and create a case. So there's a couple that I did earlier here. If I select one of the case records, the other thing MapTasker is able to do is, again, capture information at the individual record level. So the user has submitted that oil spill activity, and you can see that that data is then available on the map for me. Okay, and I can then follow up with whatever I need to do. Looking more specifically now at field service is, and again, this was an example that Brisbane City Council were using, which is where they had a call centre. So they haven't yet deployed the portal control, but they have people that phone in and want to report issues. And the challenge then is, if it's in a public space, how do you actually communicate that effectively? So what I'm going to do is create a new work order here. And I'm going to do it using a location to define where the actual issue is. So I'm going to do a search. So this is the call center agent is actually doing this. So there's the person saying, I'm outside Brisbane City Hall, and I can see, okay, I've got that address, and it takes me to that location. Now, the person says, I'm actually in the park opposite the City Hall. And so what we're able to do is bring in different Esri layers to help provide additional context with this. So there's lots of public data available, but also, the council has its own layers. So I'm able to bring up that layer for me. One of our other customers is Melbourne Airport, and their challenge is they have an airport that covers 2,500 acres, and they need to be able to define locations within the airfield. Also within their terminal buildings, they're not like a normal office block where you've got rooms and numbers or whatever. It's much harder to define locations. So what they do is provide Esri layers for the airport plan, and then the individual terminal plans, and actually the floors within the terminal. So when they're defining a location, they pick the relevant floor, they drop a pin on that floor, and we capture that location, which is what I'm going to do here. So the person said that, yes, I'm in the park. When I click on that park, this is actually querying the Esri system, and it says, oh, okay, this is King George Square. And what I'm going to do is I want to add that as the functional location. Now, having added that as the location, we've done a query to say, give me all the assets that are at that location. And you can see there's actually the lamppost, the street light that I just created earlier. And so what I'm going to do is go, yeah, actually we've installed it, but it's not working properly. So I need somebody to go and check it. So I'm going to add that as the asset. So if I go back to my work order here, you can see that the functional location has been populated for me. And if I scroll down, that you can see that the specific asset has been located for me as well. Having precision when you are locating things like assets is critically important. And if I go back to Melbourne Airport example, their runway lights are only 1 metre apart, and they fix them in the daytime when they're not switched on. By default, field service only has 5 decimal places for latitude and longitude. And depending where you are in the world, that gives you an accuracy of maybe 4 meters, maybe a bit less. With MapTasker, we store lat longs at 10 decimal places. So you can actually get down to, well, centimeter level or less, whatever's practical. But again, when you've got assets that are closely spaced, or when they may be in a plant room, as an example, being able to get that precision is critical. And most asset management systems will store data more accurately than the field service does. Okay, the final thing I wanted to show regarding the field service piece is another common challenge we've got is that field service uses postcodes to define what it calls service areas. So when a job comes in, it looks at what staff cover a particular area and then suggests them for the work order. The challenge in Australia in particular is that postcode areas can be huge. And so we, you may have multiple staff that cover a particular area. And so what we allow you to do is simply define a territory or geography just by drawing an area on a map. So I can do this and say create a territory. What I'm going to do is actually just go back to my search and actually do another search here, a new search, where I'm going to search for my work orders. And this time I'm going to use a territory. So I'm going to select Brisbane North as my territory, which is what I did earlier. So if I search that, I can see those work orders in there. Okay, so we have customers that do in-home nursing care, for example, and they have multiple nurses that cover the regional areas. And so this was a critical piece of the jigsaw puzzle in getting their solution to work for them. I wanted to go back and show some other examples of what we can do with MapTasker. So we can also create model-driven apps. So if you've got some apps that maybe integrate with field service but are done by different people and don't need field service, you can just create your own model-driven apps here. What I've done is with my searches, I can actually save them, so I don't have to create them each time. So I've got an example here where I've got some mine sites, and instead of using icons, I've used different colored pins on the map. If I bring up one of these records, as I mentioned earlier, I can click on that and navigate through to the Dynamics record. But also I can do certain actions. And so again, if you're using field service, you maybe have documents related to a particular work order or a particular location, and they may be in SharePoint, but getting to them involves normally about half a dozen clicks to get there. We're able to hyperlink directly from the card here to show that record. Another example we have is we have customers that use specialist systems that capture, for example, drone images and 3D drone images. Again, we can actually just hyperlink directly into those systems. So it just really it's all about the user experience here. It's not only is it more intuitive often to navigate records via the map, but also just being able to get to that related information with just a few clicks. And the final thing I wanted to show, I said that we can do a spatial search as well. What I'm able to do is I can just draw a freehand area on a site. So there may be scenarios where I'm not creating work orders. It may be a supervisor wants to check in on a staff member to check their work. And so I can just select that data on a map. So it's found the 4 records that sit within here. Whenever I do a search, I actually get the records listed in the data tab at the bottom of the screen here. And so I can select the records and do an action. Now, we have customers where, maybe there's a bushfire and they want to notify people in the vicinity of and alert them. So that's where they might create a marketing list and create an SMS. But what I'm going to do here is I want to actually go and visit them, and I want to create an optimized route. And so what that's done has created the route for me. It's created the directions for me, and I can just send those through to my mobile device to use Apple Maps or Google Maps as required. Final thing I wanted to just talk about briefly was around the mobile experience. So common requests we get is, can we integrate with the field service mobile app? And yes, we can. And the second one is, can we work offline? And yet again, the answer is yes, we can. We have our mining customers that use this. The only constraint we have is that maps are huge. files, and that's why when you're using them online, they are streaming to you. We can't take the whole of Australia offline, but what we allow customers to do is to create more simplified vector maps of the particular locations that they're going to, so that they can still get their bearings and work out where to draw things and drop pins, but they don't have the full fidelity of an actual satellite image. So with that, that's my presentation concluded. I'll hand back to Gareth.
Thanks, Peter. That is really cool to look at there, mate. So let me just have a quick check at the Q&A. I think we're all good. Hey, so I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As mentioned up top, I will share a copy of today's recording with our attendees and those who couldn't make it. But if you do have any follow-up questions or want us to expand on anything we've talked about, please feel free to reach out to any of the lovely faces you can see on screen now, and we'd be more than happy to expand on that because we've got a team of people very passionate about field service. Thanks heaps for joining us today, guys. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care.